Hi guys, this is the introduction for our next project, our Zentangle. This is going to specifically focus on positive and negative space. This is one of the elements of art that we discussed in the beginning of the school year. So both positive and negative space are important for us to know for this project. So positive space is going to refer to your focal point or the area of interest. So in this picture specifically, your tree is the positive space. You could argue the black parts of the image are the positive space. Then the white parts would be the negative space. Here, negative space, you have to think negative is the background or area that surrounds the subject. So this negative space is shaped intentionally into those hands to kind of crop the photo. So it is still negative space because there's nothing there. But this negative space is used very intentionally. So every time you do a piece of art, we have to balance our negative and positive space. So the picture on the left here, we can see there's way too much negative space. We don't utilize that box very well. The house is very small and there's less positive space and a ton of negative space. The one in the middle, I think, is the best. It's the most balanced. There's an appropriate amount of negative space. You don't want the house too close to the edges of the composition, much like what we see on the right. That is too close to the house. There's not enough negative space there. So here with these chairs, you can think negative space would be anywhere that there's like a hole in an object. So we talked about like earlier in the year, like a donut. The center of a donut would be negative space. With these chairs, anywhere that goes in between the legs of the chairs, that would be negative space. The chairs themselves being positive space. So here, this is a play on both positive and negative space. People say, oh, well, I see two faces. Others say, oh, I see like a candlestick. This is just whether you decide the positive or negative space is the intended image. So here, this is some different shapes playing together. This is playing on positive and negative space. You can see the white spaces are supposed to be the shape of the fish. The black spaces are supposed to be the birds. And notice how they fit together. So at the top of the image, the black birds have detail. And then as they get to the bottom, they're still the same shape, but they lack detail. Same thing with the fish, just the fish have detail at the bottom. Maybe you see a wolf howling here. Maybe you see the silhouette of a man. Either way, this is, again, a play on positive and negative space. So for our next project, you're going to have to be familiar with symmetry. So symmetry meaning something is the same on both sides. So a square has multiple forms of symmetry. It's going to have vertical symmetry, horizontal symmetry, and diagonal symmetry. With a square piece of paper, you could fold it along any of those lines, and it would be the exact same on both sides. That's what symmetry means. So here is what we will be doing. We'll be creating a Zentangle. This is the style of like pattern you guys are going to assume. So you guys won't all just copy this piece. You have to create your own Zentangle. So the idea is that you're stringing together a series of different repetitive patterns and kind of entangling them together. So the Zentangle is meant to be simple, stress reducing. This is a technique that's kind of like meditation. It's supposed to be calming, okay? So, and this can be done by anyone. This is what we'll be doing. You'll be creating a Zentangle on your white paper, or your, I guess you could call that positive space, and then using the black paper to represent your negative space. So you can have symmetry here where your animal of choice is reflected over that center line. So you'll choose one animal. Notice how the bird and the seahorse, both of them are facing each other. You can have them facing each other. That would be like bilateral symmetry. The other thing you can do is just have them both facing the same direction. That's up to you how you choose to organize your page. So this is an example that I don't want you to do. So some patterns don't really suit themselves well for like a Zentangle. With Greek art specifically, you're going to see very ornate, clean rows and organization to it. A Zentangle isn't really like that. A Zentangle is going to feel more wrapped together or tangled up. We want that to be something we're seeing in our design. Here's some examples of Zentangles. So you can see this is kind of all swirling around itself. Another example of Zentangles. You don't want to fill large areas in with Sharpie, especially because we are trying to create contrast between our white half of the paper and our black half of the paper. If you use too much Sharpie on your white half, it's going to feel conflicting, like you don't have a balance of white and black space. You want to make sure when you're creating your Zentangle, you go slowly and controlled. Don't do sketchy lines. We want nice, straight, crisp lines. So what you'll need to do when you create your Zentangle, you want a variety of line thickness. Some areas will be thicker, some areas will be thinner. I recommend using both a thick and thin Sharpie for this, and then you'll only have to create one more line weight on your own. You'll want to place emphasis on the things that are most important. So maybe you think the sectioning of your Zentangle is the most important, and then you use the fine tip Sharpie in those sections to create the patterns within the spaces. Don't fill things in. And you want to go really nice and slow to avoid wiggly lines and mistakes. So that's all I have for you for today. And then you can watch the next video.